It's the 6th of July 2013. You're watching News First, your number one news provider. I'm Sonali Vanikababagale. Let's start off with your headlines.
Minister G.L. Peiris says that the PSC that was appointed to provide recommendations on the national issue will convene despite the absence of opposition members. The chairman of the Walalawat Pradesh Sabha, who was arrested on bribery charges, remanded. Farmers in Ipologam were charged that a block of land which was inhabited by wild elephants have been taken over by politicians. Government officers in Ampara changed the land laws.
The Times of India reports that Indian External Affairs Minister Salman Khurshid had noted that Sri Lanka should go beyond the 13th Amendment to the Constitution in order to ensure meaningful development in Sri Lanka.
According to a report on the Times of India, Salman Khurshid, speaking to Minister Basil Rajapaksa yesterday, had emphasized the need, quote, to fully implement the provisions of the 13th Amendment and to go beyond it so as to ensure meaningful development of Sri Lanka, and urged Minister Rajapaksa not to do anything to dilute the provisions of the 13th Amendment, unquote. The Times of India report further notes that this is the second time in a month that India has voiced public concern about the attempts to dilute the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. The report further notes that the Indian External Affairs Minister had welcomed Sri Lanka's decision to hold elections in the northern province.
Minister Nimal Siripal de Silva, the chairman of the Parliamentary Select Committee, which was formed to make recommendations and compile a report on political and constitutional measures to enable all Sri Lankans to live as one nation, said that the PSC will meet as scheduled.
Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva said that the opposition representatives for the respective Parliamentary Select Committee are yet to be named. However, the Tamil National Alliance had already decided not to be a part of this Parliamentary Select Committee. Meanwhile, quoting the Indian Minister of External Affairs, the Hindu newspaper reported today that the Parliamentary Select Committee should comprise of all political parties. However, the chairman of the PSC, Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva, said that Indian influence will not be relevant for the PSC to meet. He added that the points discussed during Minister Basil Rajapaksa's visit to India will be disclosed to the parliamentary group of the party when it convenes on Monday. Speaking further, the minister added that the opposition not participating in the Parliamentary Selects Committee will not be an obstruction for the PSC to convene.
Minister of External Affairs Professor G.L. Peiris called on the chief prelates of the Malvathu and Askiri chapters of the Siam sect today.
The Minister of External Affairs called on the Chief Prelate of the Askiri chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Udugama Sri Buddhirakita Thera, at the Askira Vihara to inform about the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting that will be held in Sri Lanka later this year. Subsequently, Minister Professor G.L. Peiris met the Chief Prelate of the Malvathu chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Tibbotawave Sri Sumangala Thera.
The
13th Amendment to the Constitution is a legislature which is 25 years old. When society changes, these legislatures should be taken into consideration. That means, is it being implemented properly, or whether it should be amended according to the social changes that are taking place. Parliament should focus on these issues. That is why a Parliamentary Select Committee has been appointed. The first meeting of this PSC will be held on Tuesday, chaired by Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva.
Nimal Siripala මතුමාගේ ප්‍රධානත්වයෙන් මේ අගෞරවද
Journalists raised questions on what the composition of the Parliamentary Select Committee would be, with the opposition not taking part in it. The government tried to get everyone involved in this. However, are we not to do this? If someone says that they are not taking part in this, this is something that the country needs. This is something that was postponed for some time. The government was prepared to commence this process over a year ago. It was postponed because it was expected that they would participate. We cannot keep on waiting for them to participate in it. It would be like the government is evading its responsibilities.
සදාකල් බලා සිටින්න බෑ. ඒක රජයේ වගකීම් පැහැරීමක් කරනවා.
Journalists also questioned about the statement made by an Indian minister that this process should be carried out with the cooperation of both countries. Discussions are continuing. Yesterday, Minister Basil Rajapaksa visited India to discuss this matter and several other matters. There is a discussion and understanding between the countries. However, in the end, we have to think of the goodwill of the country. That does not mean that India is not important. We are continuing discussions.
ඒ නිසා මේ අපි ඒ සාකච්ඡා අඛණ්ඩව පවත්වාගෙන යනවා.
Meanwhile, the Election Secretariat notes that it will announce when it would begin accepting nominations for the North Central and North Western Provincial Council elections. The announcement would be made before the 11th of this month.
Elections Commissioner Mahinda Deshapriya noted that nominations will be accepted within a time period ranging from 14 to 21 days once a date has been published. Meanwhile, the Northwestern and Central Provincial Councils were dissolved yesterday. Yesterday, the President issued a proclamation instructing the Elections Commissioner to conduct the Northern Provincial Council election. The Election Secretariat said that the elections will be held according to the 2012 voters list. Displaced persons in the North and East have the opportunity to submit appeals to include their names in the appropriate register of electors before the 9th of this month.
The President of the Maldives, Dr. Mohammed Waheed, who is on a two-day official visit to Sri Lanka, called on President Mahinda Rajapaksa at Temple Trees today.
Issuing a communique, President spokesperson Mohan Samaranayaka said that the two heads of states held a discussion on strengthening ties between the two countries. The need of a common stance regarding issues in the regions was also discussed during the meeting. The President also hosted his Maldivian counterpart to breakfast at Temple Trees. The President of the Maldives is to meet the business community in Sri Lanka and the Maldivian community here in Sri Lanka during his stay.
Minister of Economic Development Basil Rajapaksa met with members of the Tamil Nadu Fishermen's Federation yesterday during his tour of India. The meeting took place in New Delhi.
During the meeting, Minister Basil Rajapaksa has emphasized on the importance of maintaining and enhancing people-to-people relations between fishing communities in northern Sri Lanka and Tamil Nadu in order to resolve the problems they face. During the hour-long meeting, attention was focused on issues such as Indian fishermen crossing the international maritime boundary as well as the use of harmful fishing techniques. The Minister of Economic Development had pointed out that the Sri Lankan fishermen in the northern part of the country are recommencing their trade after a lapse of 30 years and that they should be given the opportunity to ply their trade in their own fishing grounds without hindrance. During the meeting, the Tamil Nadu fishermen had expressed interest in visiting Sri Lanka and holding further discussions with the aim of arriving at a practical solution to issues.
The United States has once again highlighted Sri Lanka as a country of particular concern on human rights. U.S. Ambassador to the UN Human Rights Council, Eileen Donahoe, made this statement addressing the 23rd session of the Human Rights Council in Geneva.
During the general debate on human rights situations requiring attention of the UNHRC, the United States identified a number of countries. Speaking on Sri Lanka, Eileen Donahoe had emphasized on the need to set a visit date and provide access to special procedures. She went on to note that violations of the rights to freedom of expression, association and peaceful assembly continues to take place in Sri Lanka. Donahoe also noted that reprisals against human rights defenders, members of civil society and journalists also take place within the country. Addressing the UNHRC, the US ambassador had noted that there have been no credible investigations or prosecutions for attacks on journalists and media outlets.
A debatable situation has arisen with regard to the incident where Minister Vimal Weerawansa provided mobile phones and backpacks to Grama Seva officers. News First takes a look at this situation.
On the 28th last month, office backpacks and mobile phones were presented to the Grama Seva officers in the Kaduvela Divisional Secretariat by Minister Vimal Weerawansa. On a later day, the Mayor of Kaduvela objected to this, citing that it was illegal to provide such equipment to state officials. Yesterday at an event at the Maldives Divisional Secretariat, Minister Vimal Weerawansa responded. Recently, I thought of providing backpacks and mobile phones to the Grama Seva officers so that it would be given to them as a boost to carry out their duties. I donated those items from my personal funds and not government funds. On the 3rd of this month, the mayor of Kaduvilla, G.H. Buddhadasa, making a complaint at the election secretariat, pointed out that at a time when electoral lists are being prepared, providing mobile phones and backpacks to Grama Seva officers can be considered as a bribe. The mayor of Kaduvilla made the same complaint to the Minister of Public Administration and the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption. The Minister of Public Administration emphasized that as Grama Seva officers are given priority, it is illegal for them to accept such gifts or donation from any volunteer organization unless from the government. Secretary to the Ministry P.B. Abekon said that a circular in this regard will be issued next week. A list of guidelines for Grama Seva officers will be established through this circular. He accepted that he donated backpacks and mobile phones through his personal funds. I clearly mentioned here that it was a political bribe. I want to ask the minister from where he received money to make these donations. He is rich. If a disciplinary inquiry is held against the innocent Grama Seva officers, then I humbly ask Minister Vimal Veerawangsa to free them from it.
The chairman of the Valala Vita Pradeshi Sabha, who was arrested on charges of allegedly soliciting a bribe, has been remanded after being produced before the Matugama acting magistrate today. The acting magistrate ordered the suspect to be remanded until the 9th of July and be produced before the Colombo High Court on that day.
The chairman of the Valala Vita Pradeshi Sabha was taken into custody last evening while soliciting a bribe of 1.5 million rupees from the chairman of the Bentura Pradeshi Sabha. The Commission to investigate allegations of bribery and corruption said that the chairman of the Valala Vita Pradeshi Sabha had been arrested while attempting to solicit the bribe to grant a license related to private business.